Well, hello. My name is Stefan, and in this video I will show you how to paint a Dark Angel Space Marine. Well, at least my approach for painting Dark Angels. Of course we started with a black primer, and I used AK Interactive for that. To build up our colors, I'm going to use dark sea blue from Vallejo Model Color first. This provides a good base for the next colors that we will apply, as it has a light blue touch in it. Really like that. To thin the colors for airbrushing, I tend to use Vallejo Airbrush thinner, and I also use their Airbrush Flow Improver. This goes for all the upcoming airbrush steps. As you can see, just give it some time to dry in between and apply each layer separately. So we can guarantee a nice build-up. Turn a bit around, spray the back side. Really take your time with this step. Now we will use our first highlight color, and for this I mixed pale blue-gray from Vallejo Model Air with dark sea blue, just to give it a little bit of light. So I try to be more precise with this step, and I try to hit the upper areas of parts. It's a classical zenithal way of highlighting things. I think it's very easy and doable. Just make sure that you use the colors in thin layers. Don't go too far with one spray. Take your time with this step, and it will turn out great. To create even more contrast, I now use pure pale blue-gray from Vallejo Model Air. And I try to focus even more on smaller places to place my highlights. So be gentle, don't overdo this, take your time, build it up. As with the previous steps, we work in layers, so more layers means brighter color. Just make sure that the layers are dried in between. You can use even the airbrush to dry them, as they are very thin. Then hit it up with another layer and slowly build up the light colors. Well, I think that looks pretty good so far. Get a nice contrast here. Now, next step is to take everything back to black. To achieve this, we will hit the model next with multiple layers of very thinned down black. As the paint is very thin at this step, it's even more important to take your time and build it up slowly. We don't want to pool the model, we just want to hit the surface, stain it in black, and then let it dry, search another spot and apply another layer of black. Drying goes very fast in this step, as the paint is very thin, like I said. Looking good so far. It's very hard to give an exact amount of layers, so just do what feels right for you. I got the feeling it could be a little bit darker, so I took up the airbrush again and sprayed some more layers. Before we head to the base colors, I thought it would be good to give the previous coat some protection. And for this, I used the airbrush again and sprayed Vallejo gloss varnish to protect the entire model. I thinned the gloss varnish with Vallejo airbrush thinner, and I also added some Vallejo flow improver. This step isn't mandatory, but I think it helps a lot when painting the base colors, because when you make any mistakes, you can easily wipe away the colors with water. And as our black glaze is very thin, the water would also wipe away the glaze and leave some nasty stains there. So the gloss varnish really helps to provide a stable surface. After I let everything dry for about 24 hours, it's time to start with the base coats. And I start with the metals here first, using gunmetal from Vallejo Model Air. Nothing special here, just work your way around the parts you want to be metal and try to get a solid coat. I always tend to thin my paints a little bit with water, but the Model Air series is fine to use without water, so do as you like. Like I said, it's just blocking the colors, so I think I will finish this off cam and get back to you when everything is painted. So everything is base coated, and I also took the opportunity to take off the border, which was blue tacked in place. This was mainly done for the upcoming stop, because I want to reach the chest plate to add some checkers, one of the iconic things of the Horus Heresy Dark Angels, at least for me. So I use pale blue-gray and start to paint little squares. I try to be precise here and finish one square after the other. It's not too bad if you mess one up, because you can fix it later with black, but I try to do it right first time. This step seems intimidating at first, but after some practice I find it really relaxing, to be honest. Just painting square after square, that's it. I finished the checkers off cam, and I also added some to the right shoulder plate. Done in the same way. Now it's time to add red, another important color of Heresy Dark Angels, and I will do the left shoulder pad completely in red, maybe part on the arm. And for the red I will be using Tindalos Red from scale 75. I thin this with water, a little bit too thin first time, so added some more paint. Then I just start layering. Always keep in mind to turn the models the way it suits you. So don't try to turn the brush or a hand, just turn the models. And to do this, I like these cork holders. All is just pinned there. And it's easy to grab, and I can turn it around as I like. So I didn't go for the arm. Instead I went for the knee pad and base coated it, also with tinderless red. During the drying time of the knee pad, I can add another layer to the shoulder pad to get an even coat. Now that the base coat is done and dry, we will add Mayhem Red, also from scale 75 to the mix, to create our first highlight color. And we try to work this in the upper areas, to leave a little bit of tinderless red in the shadows. Do the same for the shoulder pad, pushing the color to the lighter spots. Make sure that you let each layer dry, don't wipe it away. So I think it is good to have two parts to paint at the same time. One can dry while you paint the other. So you don't have to wait, sit there. You can work continuously on the model and make some progress. Now we add Bile Crimson to the mix. It's an even lighter color, and we thin this down a lot, almost like a glaze consistency. I try to hit lighter spots this time, to leave more of the mid-tone, the mix from Tinderless Red and Mayhem Red, visible. And again on the shoulder pad, going from the mid to the light, pushing the color to the lighter spots. The final color mix will look darker when applied, but after you let it dry, it will lighten up. And as with previous steps, I work in layers here to build up my final color. So we finally use Pure Bile Crimson for our last highlight. And we try to be even more precise than with the previous steps, touching only small areas. And like before, working layer after layer, building up color. To blend the light and mid-tones better together, we now use a Mayhem Red Glaze to create a soft gradient. To speed up the drying time, you can use a hairdryer or just blow on it, like I did here. And then you can start working again. Now that we're done with our base layers, we will spray the whole model with gloss varnish to prepare it for the next step, which will be an oil wash. After the gloss varnish was dried, I added decals using microsol and microset. There's a ton of tutorials on YouTube how to place them correctly, so I didn't make another one. And I also painted some checkers on the left leg. Then I sealed everything again with gloss varnish. And now we're in for the next step, which will be a burnt umber oil wash from Winsor Newton, thinned down with white spirit from AK Interactive. I thinned this quite down, like a wash, and then you simply add it to the places where you want it, and it flows really nice into the recesses. The gloss varnish helps here a lot, as the surface tension is different than using oil washes on matte or satin varnishes. But I decided it would be better to use a smaller brush to have more control. So I changed it and started working again. Another great thing you can do with oils is make some streaks, like you do here. So you pick some color, paint some vertical lines on the surfaces, and then you can blend it with white spirit. In this case the oil is pretty thin, so there is no need to blend it that much. As you may notice, running pretty low on oil here. Would have been better to prepare more, but you can always prepare more if it's not enough. Hitting mainly the metals here with the oil wash, but I also use some on the decals to make them worn, darken down, dirty, to blend it better in. And don't worry too much if you touch other surfaces with the oil. It will mainly flow into the recesses, stay there, and if you don't like it, you can always wipe it away with white spirit. Of course, we do the same for our bolter. Don't forget about it, like I nearly did. So while I worked on the bolter, the oil on the marine has nearly dried. It's time for final touch-ups using white spirit. That's the thing I really love about oils. You can work on them for such a long time, blend them again, use more oil, blend it again, wipe it away, add some more. Really endless possibilities. And they create a nice look. And it's fairly easy to do, so no wizardry here. After finishing the oil wash, I decided the chest would be a good place to add another decal. So I added this red hooded knight from the Forge World decal sheets for the Dark Angels. The next step is to spray Ultra Matte Varnish from AK Interactive. It's a very thin, diluted paint, so no thinning needed. It runs smooth through the airbrush. Really like the matte look this varnish creates, although the armor looks more grey than black now. But we will fix that in a couple of moments. So don't worry too much about it now. To bring back the black armor, we use Black Templar contrast paint by Games Workshop. We thin this down a bit with water and use it like a glaze wash mix over the armor surfaces. We can use this very thin, or we add more color to the mix to create darker spots. And that's how he looks with the Black Templar contrast applied. You can see we got an interesting mix of black armor, black, grey, a little bit of blue in there. Really like it. Now it's time to apply highlights and scratches to the armor, and for that I'm going to use French Mirage Blue from Vallejo Model Color. I use these mainly for the small rivets, some edge highlights, and like I said, some scratches. And I try to use the tip of the brush and be smooth. So it's better to thin this paint down a little bit with water and then gently touch the surfaces, adding some small dots or lines in a irregular pattern to create more interest. Remember, it don't have to be a straight line all the time. You can also use some stippling. This step is one that takes a long time, but in the end it will be totally worth it. If you like this style, of course. And as before, work your way around the model, drone it so that you can reach the spots easily. And place small dots, lines, and stipple some scratches on. After we're done with the first layer, we now add Celestra Grey from Games Workshop. It's a bit of a lighter grey to create even more contrast. We use these more scars than before, so don't hit every scratch, every knob. Just place some here and there to create more interest. In this case, I like the Celestra Grey more than any white, because it isn't as bright as white, and also has a little bit of blue touch in it, which suits perfectly in combination with the dark sea blue. So if this is too tedious for you, you can of course skip this step. But for me, it's worth it. Like I said before, it's just a small invest of time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes more, and it makes quite a difference. And there he is, all finished up. Now we take some Bile Crimson mixed with Ivory to add small dots, highlights to the red parts, to take them to the same level like we did with the armor. And of course we do the same for the shoulder pad. I think I got a bit unclean there, but we can fix this easily with a glaze. So I take some Bile Crimson and glaze over the parts to unify them again. Here I hit the decal, but with water you can easily wipe away the glaze as it's very thin. So, no problem. Now it's time to work on the metals again, and for that I'm going to use gunmetal from Model Air to start the highlights. I work my way around the model here, try to catch the upper areas and leave some of the darker bits in place. We don't have to be over precise with this step, as we can fix it later after adding another wash, glaze and the final highlight. And here we are after the finished step. So we painted all the parts metal again, and we're now ready for the next step. But before we go there, we take care of our little friend the bolter, as I nearly forgot him again. So we start base coating the bolter with dark sea blue. It's the same color we used as our base for the Space Marine. After finishing the base color, we add ivory to the mix to create a lighter blue-gray, and we work our way around the edges. I also try to add some sort of marble lines to the bolter. As you can see here, paint was a little bit too thick, so I thinned it down with water to blend it better together. Painting the bolter like this separated from the model makes it much easier, although mostly I prefer to build my models as far as possible. Alright, now it's time to add even more ivory and to go a little bit lighter, again focusing on the edges, and like we did on the Space Marine, we do some scratches, some stippling, some dots for battle damage and weathering, so that the bolter fits the overall theme of the miniature. Looking good so far. I think we glue the bolter now to the Space Marine and then we do some final adjustments. So everything is glued in place, and now we make the final adjustments. This time using pure ivory, just to create some small dots. And I focus here on the mostly exposed edges. And also place some dots randomly across the bolter. I thought it would be a good time to do the laser pointer here as well. So I used some Bile Crimson, which I had on my palette, to paint the pointer in red. And I also filled some Bile Crimson heavily with water to create the glaze for a nice smooth OSL on the barrel itself. Just a small effect, but looking really cool. Okay, it's time to give our metals final touches. And we start off with Agrax Earthshade from Games Workshop. Use this as a normal wash to tune the tones a little bit down, make it more brownish. And now we use some Nuln Oil, also from Games Workshop, to make the shadows even darker. Time again for some gunmetal. And I can tell you we are nearly done with this guy. Just 2 more steps left and we're finished, finally. But I really like how it looks at the moment. I used the gunmetal here to bring back a little bit of the silvery look, as the washes turned the tones quite down into some brownish, almost brass looking metal. So we apply it as a highlight. And the final thing to do for the metals, we use some silver from Vallejo Model Air for the brightest highlights. Some last brush strokes and we're done. We finished painting our Dark Angel Space Marine. And there he is, standing on his base. Really like how it turned out, and I think the time and investment was well worth. Just one little thing to do for the base, and that is going to be some dust effects from AK Interactive. North Africa dust, to be precise. And as this is an animal color, we use mineral spirits to thin it or to blend it, almost like we did with the oil colors. And with that we are done. Thank you all for your time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to share and subscribe. And yeah, hope we all see us again soon. My name is Stefan, and I'm out. Cheers.